Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited for today's episode because we've all heard conversations about marketing, but today we're talking about experiential marketing, and we're doing it with an incredible founder and fellow entrepreneur who she has unbelievable views into the role that marketing should play when it comes to evoking emotions and memories and experiences for our audiences, our customers, our potential customers and clients. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Anna Arguello. Anna is the founder and CEO of Taylor Jean Marketing Agency with over 2 decades of experience. Anna has led award-winning marketing strategies for globally recognized brands. Her agency, which fittingly is based in the very vibrant city of Miami, specializes in creating immersive brand experiences that are not only seen, but deeply felt. She uses her platform in so many powerful and meaningful ways to elevate underrepresented voices and communities in the marketing space. And when she's not orchestrating unforgettable campaigns, she somehow balances it all as a proud working mom, a wife, and a fierce leader, redefining what it means to lead with purpose. We are all in for a treat in today's episode, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Anna Arguello. All right, Anna, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Heck yes. This is going to be a fun one, Anna. And first, to kick it off, I really want to go beyond your bio. Tell us in your own words, your backstory. Who's Anna? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Oh, where do I begin? I got into marketing kind of by mistake. I actually started as a coordinator through someone I had worked with previously, and they asked me, are you interested in doing marketing? That's not something I had even considered getting out of college. But I took on the opportunity and fell in love with marketing, and then actually started teaching. I was a professor at 26, 27 years old in college, teaching Marketing 101 after I got some experience and just completely fell in love with it. And after, like you mentioned, over 2 decades of working for corporations and then going on to the agency side where I really learned a lot, I just felt like it was time for me to go on my own, based on what I had seen, what I had learned, gaps that I had identified that I really thought I could work on. And so, with those gaps in mind, I created my own agency and named it after my daughters.
Yeah, I love that overview. And I was wondering about the name as well. I love the fact that it has such a deep and meaningful personal tie to your life as well, because we're going to talk about life. I love the fact that you're balancing all of these things, but we've got to start with really that hook for today's episode of experiential marketing. And I don't think enough people are out there talking about experiential marketing. You happen to be in Miami, which for me evokes like F1 Miami. That's such an experiential based event. And obviously there's so much cool stuff that happens in your geographic region and beyond. What the heck is experiential marketing? Why is it that we're talking about today?
Yeah, I think it's so important right now, and it continues to grow as an industry because of the fact that it does evoke emotion. And while you can do that through digital, you can't touch things tangibly. You can't smell them through digital, right? Through virtual. And so having that channel where you can really get people inspired and really have them kind of transition into a whole different world is magical, right? And so many brands are looking for that extra touch, really trying to tap into their consumers, not just through ads, not just through email, not just through, the traditional marketing channels, but really create an entirely different atmosphere and world for them, showcasing their brand and their products and services. And so it's such a unique channel, and it's so important nowadays to really tap into your target segment, just because of the fact that there's just so much going on around us through social media, through, ads that you see on TV, online. And so creating this sort of immersive experience is not only unique, but it's so important for brands to really get their name out there and get recognized.
Yeah, it really reminds me of that very famous quote of people won't remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And really that's getting at the core of what we should all aspire with our marketing. However, I feel like a lot of business owners, I get to talk to entrepreneurs for a living, and a lot of business owners convince themselves of, oh, my business isn't cool enough to be creating immersive experiences. It's not cool enough for people to care and rally behind an experience. Anna, you're already shaking your head no.
Yeah, no,
Talk
I
to us
mean,
about that.
yeah, I mean, it's not even about a cool factor. Any brand can do it. When people ask me, are there specific industries that you can only tap into? I say no. Any and every industry should really be tapping into it if they want to get close to their consumer, create different touch points. It's a channel that any industry can really tap into and really see success from it. We've seen different brands from fintech to beauty to food and beverage tap into this channel and see a huge impact through sales, through even just following them on social media, through email campaigns. So really it's for every single industry out there, and it's all about us understanding what their goals and objectives are and then transitioning it over into an experience.
Yeah, and not just all different industries. I made the mistake already in our conversation today. I brought up F1, and it's really easy to look at experiential events and look at the big players because obviously that's attainable for them on multi-million dollar budgets. But Anna, bring it to the small businesses. Obviously, you've worked across a wide array of clients and projects. What does it look like at some of the smaller scales?
Yeah, I mean, you really don't have to spend that much money to show up. It's just getting creative, right? Really, you can do a pop-up cart with your branding on it and talk about your products or services at a high traffic area. You really don't have to spend a lot of money. It's just getting creative. And that's where we come in and we help with that strategy, with the creativity, really bringing it to life. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. In fact, we urge you not to spend a lot of money up front because you have to do some test and learning to really understand, where they could show up, what would be the best scenario, what would be the best strategy. So doing a little bit of test and learn is always a good idea, and wasting a lot of money on that isn't the best idea to move forward. So I always say do some test and learning, learn from that, re-execute much bigger and better.
Yeah, I love that approach. We are definitely going to talk about the testing and setting ourselves up for success. But before we get there, I'd love, just having gone through your work and your website, it looks to me like you love bringing people together at these events. What are some of those real life examples of some of your favorite events you've run?
Oh my God. I mean, I've been to so many different events. There's events like South Beach Wine and Food Festival brings people together, and it's so exciting and it's so much fun. And you see the joy in people's faces with the amount of eating and drinking that they do, but it just brings people together and you see a different side of people. You don't tend to see people connect as quickly, talk to each other as quickly as you do in these sort of environments. So it's a very positive way to bring people together from all different parts of the world, all different backgrounds, without so many expectations other than just having fun.
Yeah, let's talk about that because you really bring some happy memories for me. I'm originally from Boston. I'm a fellow Floridian like you these days, but up in Boston, one of my favorite Boston-based brands is Life is Good. And obviously on the surface, they look like a t-shirt company started by a couple of brothers. But the truth is they host some of the most epic experiential marketing events I've seen in the Boston area. They have a Life is Good festival every year where now they bring in, all these big brands. It wasn't always that way, but now of course they've grown to that level. And everybody who shows up, we all have good feelings around that brand that they've created. And of course, me being a business junkie and a marketing junkie, I always think to myself, what's the back end look like for these brands? What are the metrics that they're tracking? How do they show the positive aspects of getting this many people to come together? What are those back end metrics that you're interested in?
Yeah, and it really does come down to the brand and what their objectives and goals are. I will say for some brands, it's really just getting their brand name out there, right? The more recognition, the more you see a brand, you just automatically trust it more. It's a psychological thing. And I always say marketing is very much psychological. But for other brands, it is very metric driven, and they do want to see an ROI in their activation. So for example, for some of our brands, like the fintech companies that we work with, it is all about metrics. And so we definitely work on our end to ensure that we are measuring everything that goes on within that activation, from having a sweepstakes in place to really engage people and get them excited to be a part of the activations, gather some data for them so that then they can circle back and continue to reach out to them with different events and different products and services. So we do tap into data-driven metrics and ensuring that we either have enough context in place based on what the brand wants, or enough premium giveaways, or enough of a footprint and enough traffic in the activation. But in terms of measuring it, we definitely have a system in place in the background where we're constantly keeping track of the footprint and the amount of giveaways and engagements that we have throughout those activations.
Yeah, I feel like you just revealed a little bit of your playbook for us right there in real time. I think it was on your website. Somewhere when I was researching your company, I saw you write, we're not an events company, we're an experiential marketing company. And to me, what's really important there is an events company can put together an incredible event, but you're talking about having the right contacts, lining up the right giveaway. Of course, that's the marketing side of things, is it's not an event if people don't show up. Everybody's biggest fear, rightfully so, is of course nobody showing up to our events. Anna, reveal some of that playbook for us, because you've teased it a little bit. How the heck do we make sure the right people are at our events?
Yeah, and it's all about knowing your target audience, right? So while some brands might want to build something from scratch, especially if you're a smaller brand, it's not about building something and then trying to drive traffic. It's all about showing up in the right location. So for example, if we have a client who is mostly focused in Hispanic market, it's really going to these festivals and these events where their target audience already lives and is already showing up. So it's really making sure we understand their target audience so that we show up in the right high traffic areas and events.
Yeah, on that note, obviously, we all see the very successful events have great social media presence afterwards. I want to talk about that after play, because it's not just about before getting people there and then during having people there. How do we maximize it on the back end? Is it having a photographer there to capture all of these memories so that we can use it as further goodwill and brand awareness? What's the back end look like?
100%. You want to have a good photographer, a good videographer. You want to potentially include a hashtag for activation goers and a festival goers or event goers to then share themselves and take pictures, when they're in front of a photo op. So you want to make sure that your plan includes not only pre and during, but also post. What does that post look like? What is the strategy? Do you want festival goers or event goers to share their experience? And if so, do you have a hashtag? Do you have a photo booth where they're going to be sharing their images? So you definitely want to incorporate that post event capture, whether it's through metrics, whether it's through photo ops, and ensure that you have a good videographer and photographer to also share on social media channels as you're going through that process in that event.
Yeah, I love the fact that you interjected even a photo booth. That just seems to be like a magnet in any given setting. I was at a New Year's party for my parents' neighborhood, and whoever was hosting it in their house, they even had just a photo wall, which, it's easy to assemble, ordering things through Amazon, and it was the talk of the party. Everybody loved taking pictures there. Gosh, now you're making me realize the podcast, I probably should have had a logo there. Would have gotten a lot of brand awareness from people organically sharing it. And I feel like that just speaks so much to your creativity and, of course, your experience, the fact that you've done so many of these events. What's your answer for business owners and for brands who don't feel creative, who are sitting there saying, I can't even imagine what an activation would look like? How do you begin that process of brainstorming with them?
Yeah, it's really all about one, making it about the consumer, right? We talked about the photo booth. Why is it so successful? It's because we're focusing on that consumer. It's about them. It's not necessarily about the brand. So understanding your consumer, you can then kind of wrap your head around how you can create an activation and a strategy that's really focused on them so that they're excited about it. So it really does come down to the brand knowing their consumer and then us talking about that consumer and what would just be something exciting for them to be a part of an experience, and then start to build out that activation and that experience around that consumer and their likes and wants and needs.
Yeah, and probably a lot of people haven't worked with a creative marketing genius such as yourself. I'd love for you to map out what that process looks like, because I feel like we're talking about some of the very many different stages that are involved in it. But when you activate with a brand, what are those steps that they follow? Because I know that having a guide such as yourself that's been there and done it probably makes this a lot less worrisome for brands who are doing it.
Yeah, it all comes down to one, understanding their goals, their objectives, what the company wants to accomplish. Is it wanting to put a new product launch in front of the consumer? What does their budget look like from then? And then building out something based on their budget, based on their objectives. Is it a one-time thing, or can we stretch it out from that one-time event to, an email sort of workflow, and then transitioning it into social media content that they can really build on. So it really comes down to their budget as well. And like I said, just because it's a small brand and a small budget doesn't mean you can't create something that's impactful. It just comes down to how much you can stretch from that activation and make something more from it, right? Use other channels to really continue to reinvent from that activation and create content. So it really comes down to understanding the brand's needs, their objectives, what their goals are, who their consumer is, and then obviously understanding their budget, start to build out that activation based on that budget.
Yeah, so well said. Especially, I love the fact that you think about small brands, small budgets, and you've got solutions there. Where my head goes is also to small markets. I grew up in a small town in central Massachusetts, and the only experiential marketing that I saw, Anna, it was so bad. It was Chamber of Commerce red ribbon cutting events, and they were the most boring events. Nobody showed up for those. I was a member of the chamber, so I had a marketing agency at the time, and I just wondered why. Like, do something cool, do something that people enjoy. What are those possibilities in smaller geographic markets? You and I obviously live in big cities. Not everybody does, and I would argue it gives them more of a chance to stand out. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the first events I did for Taylor Jean Marketing was for a Chamber of Commerce. And it was, they were putting on a small event, and they really wanted to generate some excitement for the small local business owners that were walking into that dinner, and do something a little bit different that they'd never done before. And I said, hey, I think putting the focus on them, right? Having a magazine cutout where they can stand in front of it, and it has the Chamber of Commerce's name, and then just some of the highlights, and make it look like a magazine cover that they're in front of, that they're a part of, will really become, something exciting for them, because it, again, makes it a focus on them. And then you get a super cool photo op from it, and they get to share it. And then you get some additional eyes and impressions on this Chamber of Commerce. Well, we ended up doing that magazine cutout. We had so many people standing in line to get in front of the magazine cutout for the photo op. And it was very successful and very exciting for them, and something really different that they had never done before.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Really, you get my mind going in so many different directions, because another area that I think about, hearing you talk about, really the only limit is our creativity and our imagination. What I think about is the biggest event here in Tampa, which is Gasparilla. And for people who are not familiar with Tampa's Gasparilla, again, loving business, I looked into the origins of it, and all of the local Cuban business owners many, many years ago, I think close to 100 years ago, they banded together and they said, let's create this experiential pirate invasion of the city and share with people our Cuban cigars, our Cuban sandwiches, all the different goods and fares that they have at their own local restaurants. How does partnership factor into this? Because I feel like if you're intimidated by having your first experiential marketing experience or activation, partnering with other brands and companies could be a great solution.
100%. It's such a community-driven sort of industry. So the more you get of a participation from different brands, the bigger it becomes, the more exciting it becomes. You have, all sorts of different vendors, and that obviously drives more people into it. Word of mouth is such a big part of it as well. So 100%, when the community comes together, you're creating an experience for that community, right? So especially like you mentioned in small towns, this is basically experiential marketing. All of them coming together, putting on a 1 to 2 day experience and showcasing their products and services. And people want to go out there and see those brands and see those products. And so, yeah, that's a great example of experiential marketing. That's not difficult, very simple, but yet very effective.
Yeah, with that in mind, I promised we'd come back to experimentation. And anytime I have marketing conversations, especially like paid ads, let's call out the paid ads industry for a second. Everybody wishes that there was a way to tell that their paid ads are going to work. So, Anna, you talked about experimentation. In paid ads, we just kind of have to spend some money and get some data back. What does experimentation look like in your world?
Like I said, it's test and learn. And I will say, obviously, through my experience and working with so many different brands, I already have sort of that experimentation on my end through my experience. But test and learn is important. Like I said, when you are a brand that's sort of risk adverse and might be a little bit concerned or they've never done experiential marketing, you can still do some test and learn in a very small space and small activation, and really showcase. But for a lot of the brands whom might not want to do test and learn, might not want to even spend any budget, we also have case studies of different different clients that we've been successful with, and so we can showcase those case studies to brands that haven't done it in the past and are wary and aren't sure, to really demonstrate how successful it can be with the right strategy in place and the right execution.
Yeah, that is so well said. I feel like there's so much to be learned from that answer right there. And that's what we all own as leaders of our own businesses and in our own industries, is that we are part of our clients' experimentation, as we bring all of our lessons and expertise to the table when we work with people. So, Anna, it's a very cool value add, and I love the way that you articulate that. I want to switch gears, though, because I knew that we'd be short on time, and I want to squeeze in some additional topics because I so admire the fact that you're not only a founder and fellow entrepreneur, you are a mom, you are a wife, you obviously care about the community that you live in and uplifting others. Yes. What does that sort of balance look like between life and business?
Crazy. It's everyday hustle. Trying to balance it out, trying to be a good mom, trying to be a good business leader. I'm still obviously very much in the small business phase, but growing my team and, trying to be a good leader for them takes time, and takes care, especially in trying to build a good culture, which I'm very adamant about. And so it's a fine balance between being a good leader, running a business, and then going home, cooking dinner, and being a mom. But I will say I wouldn't want it any other way. You learn so much from both ends, from being a wife, from being a mom, and from being a business leader. And all I try to do is do the best I can do every day. And it's not always perfect, of course, but it's definitely a fine balance in trying to do everything, and just trying to be good in all of it. And sometimes it's more work, and sometimes it's trying to finish up early and spend more time with my girls. So it is a fine balance, but it's definitely crazy every day.
Yeah, that's why I've always loved that book, The 4 Agreements. I've always loved one of those 4 agreements, which is do your best. God. Sometimes your best is truly your peak performance. Sometimes your best is just your best on that day. And it sounds to me like you embrace that and all the different roles and hats that you have to wear. But I want to go deeper into culture, because it's so clear to me, and all the research I did ahead of you and I getting together today, in your questionnaire, on your website, even in this conversation, culture matters a lot to you. And I feel like that's a word that we've watered down just because we throw it around so loosely on podcasts and YouTube videos and in business books. What's culture mean to you, and what does it actually look like inside of your business to build that culture?
It's a huge deal to me, just because I do hear it a lot. And it's a word that's thrown around a lot, but don't see it much in action. And so I've been very careful about how I use it, but definitely try to put it into play every single day, because I think when we speak about culture, we speak about care, and caring for those that work with us, whether it's through partnership, whether it's through being a client, whether it's internal. making sure you show that you care, not just about the people, but the brands is so important to me. And so it's not just another number. It's not just a dollar sign. It's really taking the time to understand and to put care and effort into it. And so in everything that I do, when I have my meetings with those that work with me, when I have meetings with clients, I definitely put 100% of my time and effort into every single one of those interactions, because I definitely want to show up, listen, understand, and care about each one of those interactions. And I think that makes a huge difference, and that really builds a solid culture. So I don't want to just say I care. I want to show that I care every single day in every interaction. And it's not always easy, right? Because you have so many things going on, but I think it's very, very important to create that type of culture and that type of environment as you start to build out a business, because you want to ensure that you're not just saying it, you're showing it, and that everyone else around you is continuing to do the same. And so you need to lead by example.
Yeah, and truth be told, I mean, that's a big lesson in and of itself right there, is that caring goes a long way. I feel like it's become an underestimated currency in today's society, where everybody moves so quickly and we have AI to take so much of the load off of us. The one thing AI will never be able to do as well as humans is to care, and I think that that's such a valuable lesson. And I want to squeeze in 2 more questions before we let you go. And the first is because I'm so fascinated not only by what you do today, but by your background. Obviously, you've had a successful career even before launching your own business. You've been a professor. How has entrepreneurship compared to those different pursuits? What are some of those ingredients that you think to yourself, wow, I love this aspect of entrepreneurship, or maybe one that was very surprising when you went out on your own?
Very surprising, all the administrative work that comes with it. The amount of paperwork is insane. I've learned a lot through that. So that's definitely been eye-opening for me. And there's just a lot that you're learning along the way. And also just showing up every day. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you'll be tired. Sometimes you might not want to, work. You might be just tired from having a really long day. I had one event where I didn't sleep for 36 hours because we had some issues. And so sometimes you're tired after that, but, you wake up and you try all over again and you show up. And so I think just that sometimes you're going to be tired, but you have to show up, and there are learning curves, and there's a lot of things that you're not going to know. But that's also the fun part of it, right? Is learning through all these different obstacles, something new every day. And so I think that's the favorite part of being an entrepreneur for me, is that I'm constantly learning something new every day. And so it's really hard to get bored.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that. Every day is exciting. I find that is the biggest difference between myself and my line of work and all the entrepreneurs I know versus the traditional 9-to-5 people. There's other benefits that they go to experience, but I love how lit up we get to be about the type of work that we do. So, Anna, this is your time to shine with this last question, because it's super broad. You can take it in any direction you want, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different levels of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur yourself, what's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Don't be scared. Don't be scared to take risks. Believe in yourself. Know that you're going to have really hard days, that you might want to give up, but don't give up, especially when it starts to get really hard. That's usually because you're on the cusp of something bigger and better. So just don't give up no matter what, and believe in yourself, and surround yourself with people that believe in you. That's so critical and so important. And I always mention my husband and my daughters. Obviously, they're little, but just knowing that I have a support system at home that believes in me, it makes a world of a difference. So I just say, believe in yourself and keep going no matter what.
Yes, I love that advice for our listeners. I love how much you called out, especially when it gets difficult. That means you're about to experience a new breakthrough. And I really love that, because it's advice that's easy to hear, harder to adopt. So we always need that reminder. And I'm grateful for you giving that reminder to our listeners. And I'm also very excited for our listeners to check out your work. I think it's so cool. Everywhere that I looked about your business, you have so much pride about the team that you've built, the events that you help your clients with, the type of work that you do. So for listeners who want to find your work and all the great stuff that you're up to, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Go to Instagram, taylorjeanmarketing.com.
Yes, listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find those links down below in the show notes. We're linking directly to Anna's business Instagram down below. Also, her business website, taylorjeanmarketing.com, which if you scroll to the bottom, you'll find Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all the good places where they are. And you'll also see all the things that they do with the clients that they work with. So, Anna, you've been such a wealth of knowledge in sharing all of this with us today. On behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.